Hey everybody, it's Allie Edwards and welcome to story number 1 for December Daily 2024. I've got my hot cup of coffee here and I'm super ready to dive into some storytelling. Woohoo! All right, so story number 1. I knew before coming here to my table today that for story number 1 I wanted to do a full page photo of my house. And I printed this out previously, so that is all ready to go. My album is already super thick, and that's how we're rolling. What I think that I want to do, I'm not sure if I'm going to use this die cut on here yet, because I kind of have an idea for this page, and I don't know if it's all going to go together. I might pop that in at somewhere else. Even if it was like, maybe I end up not using it as a die cut, or with the, I could cut that part off and that might end up being, ooh. Okay. I like that idea, so I'm going to set that aside. But what I wanted to do on this one, and I'm pretty sure I can just build this without the album sitting on there. These are the elements that I have picked out for this. So I've got the green felt number. I've got a green ribbon. I've got this guy. I printed out some journaling that I ran through the Mink machine. This is on transparency, gold foil on transparency, and it says, our holiday season kicked off on November 1st this year when the house lights went up. We had the option to do it earlier than in previous years, and I said yes right away. This photo captures the moments between Halloween and the floating pumpkins, which I did this year, floating pumpkins, and the start of the Christmas season. My birthday is on November 4th, and having the lights up already was a treat. The holiday season goes so fast, and I'm here for extending the twinkle season. So that's going to go on here. And you can see that I'm starting with something that is essentially like some vertical strips that could potentially live on top of the photo. This is where I'm thinking. The other thing, and part of what I wanted to do with that, so I think it was in product play this year, I did something where I took a transparency like this. You can see that this is a portion of a transparency, right? Here's the seam over here. And I adhered it onto something in order to create a fold up. And so I'm kind of thinking about that in this situation where this then would be able to flip up to reveal the photo there, kind of that it would be laid on top. The other thing that would allow me to do is I want to use this. Obviously, I'm doing it in a 6x8 album. I've already done lots of folded pages. So one of the things that I was thinking of doing and what I want to do to kind of experiment a little bit before I dive in is hanging. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas also on here. So I have like these 5 different hanging elements, or maybe I end up hanging a ribbon, or the bow goes on the bottom. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I'm super excited to just finally start making it happen. So the first thing I'm going to do here is we're going to cut this paper up. Oh, this was the other place. Some of you guys saw I had this fun star ribbon. I got this on Amazon. It's May Arts. They're like puffy stars. That was something else I was thinking that maybe could hang down. But it could also be the thing along the top. I don't know. We'll see. That's what we're here for. It's time to play. So my first story here, story number 1, is obviously a story of something that happened prior to December. So don't get caught up, and it has to be something that happens your story number 1 does not have to be day number 1. Can be if you want it to be, but doesn't have to be. I'm actually going to trim in between these two first to kind of see what the space between is going to be like. Let's do that first. Then I'll have a little bit of a better idea how much to cut off the edge of those ones. Okay, so remember, again, I'm making strips here, right? That are going to be able to go somehow hanging on here. Okay, so we're just going to give it a little bit more there. That's pretty good. What I was looking at, I was trying to get the same distance on the top. Look a lot like Christmas. So I have not been playing Christmas music yet, but that is going to start today. 100% starting today. I also want to see, maybe I'm going to cut this. This is that, still the same paper, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe I want to have that as the background, or the green as the background. I'll make it a little bit more readable. Get that on there. Okay, so that might live on top of there. It might not. I did leave a little border around this, as you can see, with the gold foil. Again, this is run through the ink machine. But let's see. What I want is I want to be able to add it onto this plastic potentially. Let's see if it's, I'm going to need to trim it a little bit more, it looks like. So one of today's simple design reminders is to encourage and or invite yourself to look at things differently, right? Just because that pattern paper was, or this paper was oriented horizontally doesn't mean you have to use it horizontally. You can move it around, have it be vertical instead. Okay. Let's see if this is going to work and just how it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Okay. So the idea here originally is that I would have some sort of, I don't know if I want them all to be together. This is part of it, right? Like, do I want, with the idea, the goal being that this is going to flip up. How do I feel about that? Is it just covering everything up? Okay, one thing I'm thinking I want to do, I don't like that, how do I say this? I don't like this edge. I still feel like this could be trimmed. Oh, I'm not going to do it, I'm just going to leave it. I just kind of cut into it, like, to make it a little bit more like a banner on the bottom. I could have left more space, so if you're just watching along, you could leave yourself more space. Alrighty, so after I got this trimmed, I'm looking at just, how do I want to lay these out? Do I want to have ribbon? What do I actually want to have here? I think, my initial vision included the striped ribbon and that kind of stuff. But as I was thinking about it, and as I left my office to go take care of a couple things, I started thinking about, what if I cut up the words more so that they become more like individual banners and they aren't as long. I think that part of the thing for me was a little bit of, I felt like it was too long and I don't know. This is a part of the puzzle that I enjoy putting together, right? How do I bring these pieces together? How can I cut them up? How can I look at this a little bit differently than maybe I was when I was initially standing at my table to do this? So I'm going ahead and I'm trimming it up a little bit more. I'm also still adding on the little banner edges at the bottom. I will later in the process here be trimming all of those so that they are starting at the same spot. But this immediately felt better to me, and I was like, okay, this is good. And then I laid it out with the transparency, which I also liked. Kind of was like, okay, is this what I want? But as I thought about it, I decided that it was a little bit hard to read, and I think I'm getting older because everything's harder to read. It was harder to read, and I just decided that I wanted to try something different. First, I trimmed the bottom into a banner shape, and then I'm going to end up reprinting it on vellum. And part of what printing it on vellum did was allow me the opportunity to emboss the number 1 on the top, and you'll see that here in a little bit. At this point, I'm still kind of sticking with that. So printable vellum, I had saved the journaling that I had typed up. I also fixed a typo that I originally had on there. So this is the kind of thing, like I save these things, just save them as, journaling day 1 for December Daily 2024. And then I'm able to go back in if I need to adjust them. So I think it's about 1.5 inches wide is what this ended up being. It was like between 1.25 and an inch. And I really liked the look of this. And I was like, okay, good. Now I can do gold embossing for the number that will be the similar gold to what we have on the pattern paper. I'm using the 4x6 alpha and number set that we offered as part of the collection this year. It's super cute. It's got a mixture of uppercase and lowercase in a couple of different fonts, so you get that variety in there. Using Versamark embossing powder, and then I'm going to use Ranger gold, or Versamark embossing ink, and then I'm going to use Ranger gold embossing powder on the top there, and then a heat gun to set and or melt that in place. And as I was doing this, I was like, yes, feels good. I like how this is turning out. Going ahead and melting the embossing powder there. And at this point, I'm still thinking, okay, let's see, how am I going to adhere this? How am I going to attach this on there? I've got the plastic piece of the page protector there. What do I want to do? Still kind of thinking that through a little bit. But before I took any additional action, I decided to trim down the top so that I had all the words essentially started in the same spot. They're not exactly right. I don't care. They're going to be just fine. They're close enough. But I really like the look of the banners on there, and I'm glad that I ended up going in this direction. So then I took the banners off, and I used a little bit of the scrapbook.com blue tape to temporarily adhere them together, partly because I just was looking at, okay, how are these, how am I going to attach these? What are they going to look like when they fold up? And the big question was, do I want to put something on the back? Do I want to cut up pattern paper? Do I want to stamp something? Do I want to add words on the back? Or, because this is going to flip up, right? And so we're going to see what's on the underneath part here. So there's lots of different things you could do. I could have added pattern paper under there. I could have added a bunch of word phrase stickers. You could put an additional photo underneath there that could get cut, to the size of those banners. But what I ended up doing instead was going to one of the stamp sets this year, one that had the patterns on it. And I'm going to just use the dotted one and the gold embossing powder and go ahead and do that on the back of all of these. So it gives me the look of pattern paper. It gives a more finished look, like I did something on the back side. You don't have to do this, but it's just a nice little additional piece on there, and it ties in the gold embossing that I have on the other side. I also don't try to make this perfect. If I don't care. So I don't mind if they're messy dots and they end up being messy dots, because that's just how it goes. And I like the look of it. Like, it is a pattern that I would create on my own. And so I think it looks fun. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that on all the rest of the banners there, so that when that flips up, you'll be able to see this little pattern underneath. So it just makes it look a little more finished there. Versamark, again, is the ink that I'm using. Ranger Gold embossing powder. We have both of those in our shop if those are something that you need. And then I'm using a heat gun. The mat I'm using there is a Tim Holtz Media mat, I think is what it's called. Obviously, I do all kinds of crazy stuff on my table, so I don't always need to protect it, but that's what that can do. So now you can see I have all the backs embossed, which I think looks cute, especially when you flip it up. And what I'm going to end up doing now is retaping these. So I'm going to get that temporary blue tape out again, because I'm going to run this through my sewing machine. I'm going to run all 6 of my strips along with my journaling on the vellum. That's also going to go through the sewing machine to essentially create a banner, right? A banner with a bunch of little flags that are hanging down below there. So I'm going to temporarily tape this in order to be able to take it over to my sewing machine and run that through the sewing machine. So if you don't have a sewing machine and you like this idea, you can absolutely just do this with using redline tape. You could even staple these onto the plastic there. There's lots of different things that you could do. You could hand stitch them if you wanted to. I'm going to pull this whole thing up so that I can use the blue tape with the vellum, so that I can do one line of stitching right along the top. It's going to be really close to the top, and it looks cool in the end, and you'll see that in a second here. Like, it looks like it's a banner, like it wouldn't have to be straight in a line, and you could do all kinds of fun things with it. So you're going to see what that looks like in just a second. And if you wanted to, you could stretch these out, right? You could have stitching in between them. It could be even looser. Here I am coming over to my sewing machine. I have cream thread in my sewing machine right now, so I'm just going with that for today. This is sped up a little bit on the video itself, but I'm going pretty slow on here, especially knowing that what is holding these together is just a temporary adhesive tape. I'm trying to go straight, but if it's not straight, like if I pulled it out and it wasn't straight, I'm not gonna start over again. It's just gonna be what it is by the end there. But I'm totally loving this, especially even after I stitched it. I was like, oh man, this is making me so happy. So there you can see that's what that looks like with the stitching. I'm going to pull these off, and you'll see how each one is still its own individual piece, right? Its own individual banner, even though they are all connected on the top with the stitching. And this is where, like, you could shape this, right? You could shape it into more of a banner shape. I could have done that where it actually kind of hung down. That would have been another option. Here you could turn it into almost like a circle, especially if you added more on there. Just some other things to think about. What I just did right there is I took that, so this is the page protector that I had cut so that it was 7 inches wide. Has the seam along the top. I just cut the part that I'm going to adhere to my banner to about probably 1/4 of an inch, between 1/4 inch and 1/2 of an inch. And I'm adding the thin version. This is a 1/4 inch red line tape. And I'm going to pull that off, and then I'm going to adhere this, my banner onto there. So I kept the seam at the top. This is going to allow, the seam is going to sit at the top of my photo, basically, and then it's going to have, the banner is going to come onto the front of the photo. So you can see I'm just kind of gently laying it on there, trying to get it essentially in a straight line, following the seam that I have up above. Again, you could do this, it doesn't have to be a straight line, but is how I had planned it out in terms of how much space I was going to have. So now I have the back flap part of the page protector there, and that's what's going to get adhered on the back with some more red line tape. So you can see what that looks like when you flip it all up there. This page is going to be attached into my album using a page attacher. So I've got that 6x8 page attacher. We also have page attacher stickers that you can use, or you can cut your own piece of plastic if you wanted to do that too, to add it inside. This is the little bit thicker red line tape that I have, and this is going to hold the back part of the transparency, or excuse me, I keep saying transparency, the back part of the page protector. It's going to hold that in place there, and this will get covered up tomorrow with something else for my story number 2. So there's a look at that part and how it flips up. I really love it. Makes me happy. I am then going to add this page onto that page attacher there. I'm going to pull off the adhesive. If you have these in your stash and you've maybe seen me use them before, I always cut them in half. You don't need to have both pieces of it. It makes it last. It goes a lot farther, and it works just fine as one strip there too. All right, other things that I am doing here, pretty much this is it. Like, I liked how that turned out. It's nice and flat, which is, I already need that in my album. And yeah, I'm ready. Let's get some stories told. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you back here again tomorrow.